USAID's dark secret, 164 million to terrorists exposed. A bombshell investigation by the Middle East Forum has exposed USAID's dark secret, at least 164 million in taxpayer dollars that have allegedly been funneled to to extremist organizations, with 122 million directly aiding groups aligned with designated terrorists. Among the most damning revelations, USAID granted $900,000 to the how do I pronounce this? Bayader Association for Environment and Development, a Gaza-based NGO with deep ties to Hamas, whose 2021 report documented coordination with Hamas's Ministry of Interior Works, Social Affairs, and Agriculture. USAID officials didn't just fund Bayader, they actively praised it, with senior official Jonathan Kamin even accepting an award from the group. The report further uncovered 12.5 million granted to the American Near East Refugee Agency, or ANERA for short, whose employees have publicly called to erase the Jews and celebrated Hamas's October 7th massacre as a beautiful morning. Worse still, domestic extremist groups like the Tides Foundation, accused by Congress of fueling pro Hamas anti Jewish violence on U.S. college campuses, also received funds. And I will talk about the Tides Foundation if you just give me a moment. The scandal has rocked Washington, D.C., placing USAID under intense scrutiny. So, oh my God, there is so much to unpack here. And basically, wait, oh my God, where did all my notes go? Okay, let me
Yeah.
break this down. So, first of all, actually, maybe I'll get into that in a second. There's a lot to unpack here. So, what is most important for people to understand is that this is not a scenario where the US is directly just handing over money to a bunch of jihadis. Like, this is a scenario where USAID is giving money to a group to operate in a specific location with a specific purpose. And then that group has a subgrant that, like, that first awardee has a subgrantee, and this subgrantee is aligned with a designated terrorist organization. So this is like an ongoing pattern that happens all across our different areas of our foreign aid disbursement. And what was very interesting about this is that a lot of well, this wasn't surprising to me at all, but that's just because I am interested in this area, is that this happens very consistently within the realm of Palestine and specifically Gaza. Um, Now, maybe it's just because I'm being cynical. But I'm like, "Oh, yeah, no, I mean, of course, all aid that goes into Gaza ends up in the hands of Hamas." Like, that's par for the course. I expect nothing less. Like, I don't know, maybe, again, maybe it's just my own cynicism, but I just assume that. Um, but what this report delved into is how this is not just exclusive to Palestine and Gaza. This happens also in the realm of Pakistan with regards to groups associated with Jamaat-e-Islami, which is a horrible group, basically the South Asian subsidiary of the Muslim Brotherhood, if you're not aware. And then these groups in turn end up being associated with groups such as Lashkar-e-Taiba, which committed the Mumbai hotel attack, which I don't know if people know this about me. I have a special hatred reserved in my heart for Lashkar-e-Taiba. We don't hear about it very much in the West and the US because their operations are not typically directed towards our interests, mostly India's interests. But like they're a nasty group. I hate Lashkar-e-Taiba. And so basically, if you give me a moment, because Google Notebook LLM messed me up a little bit, I can help draw out a chart. So wait, create a flow chart of.
By the way, I just want to clarify before we get that, guys. I don't think me and Susie are in favor of this whole Doge thing going out and fucking destroying the whole. Like, there's a when it comes to the USA, this is true that this is disgusting. Like, this is, and nobody can deny that when it comes to USA, there's a lot of weird, bizarre, and disgusting programs there. However, giving up on U.S. soft power and just leaving the door open for China to just move right in, the way Doge is doing, like, we're not in favor of that either. Okay, so I just want to make sure that people don't think that we're showing this to kind of like, I mean, um, there needed to be some cutting and some more transparency and some adjustments, of course, but not like this. Okay, like there's
Yeah.
not even remotely close to what's happening right now. Like, this is insane. Like, I don't think, like, many, I don't know, guys, do Americans, I'm glad that some people on the left that used to be that used to treat anything America does outside its borders as American imperialism, now coming out and explaining the nuance and importance of American soft power around the world. Like, what the hell happened? Where were you guys before? Like, how come?
Stuck in
How
the
come?
interfields of identitarianism. That's where they were.
Right, right, exactly. Like, before, you guys were like, what the hell were you guys arguing? You guys were arguing over identity politics before all the time. Now you remember how important it is for United States to maintain its soft power all around the world. So yeah, so
But
this,
it's too
I mean,
late now. You haven't
it's
been
too
telling
late
that to
now.
the American people for way too long. It's like just watching the congressional hearing that happened earlier this week regarding Doge and USAID and the appeals that the Democrats as the minority were making on the at the hearing. I understood why they were making those arguments, but it just felt too late. Like with the sentiment of populism and isolationism for a certain extent that is so popular among the American base, it just like that ship has sailed, guys. I don't know if they care to listen to that argument anymore. But yeah, like I also don't like the way that the USAID situation is being handled at all. Um that being said, that like this being called out is the 10% that I do like and does
Right.
demand being addressed with extreme urgency because some people might say, "Oh, well, Susanna, the USAID budget is somewhere between 40 billion to close to 70 billion. You're talking about a mere 164 million. Like are you willing to,
This,
discredit the whole agency on the basis of that allotment of funds?" And an easy retort is, okay, it might be a small amount of the total budget, but with that money going to these groups, that is ultimately going to cost us way
yeah.
more. It's gonna cost us way more down the line. So, it is important to completely audit
So
everything that came out of this 164 million because it is dire. It is dire.
yeah,
Um, go
yeah,
ahead.
just to clarify, nothing that Doge is doing is going to get any, like, anything close to the savings that they're looking for, right?
No.
The importance of cutting something like this is not for financial, for adjusting the budget. Like, this is not even going to make a freaking dent. The importance of cutting something like this is because you're funding freaking terrorists. Okay, this is funding terrorists. This is the funding of the enemies of not only the allies of United States, but this is the funding of the enemies of United States itself. These are
Mhm.
this is like, we are looking for um like, oh, where did Qatar funded Hamas, or where did the Islamic Republic funded Hamas? Motherfucker, this is the U.S. funding Hamas. This is the U.S. funding. Like, before we go find Qatar and the Islamic Republic, like this is this is U.S. taxpayer money showing up in the hands of Hamas. Like, again, so I hate that this makes a lot of people would look at this and they think like, oh, okay, well then Doge makes sense. Like, I mean, no, it doesn't. Like, that's the problem, because it's, you either have on one side people pointing out to stuff like this and be like, okay, so we need Doge, and then we have on the other side people who are like, oh, some of the examples they're giving us are ridiculous, so all of the examples are therefore wrong, and then I don't know. I don't want to make the middle ground being the correct position fallacy, but in this case, it's the truth. The middle position is the correct position here. I don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
You know what? Actually, let's watch this video
Wait,
that B
Derek, why
found.
do you keep spamming? Like, I want to warn Derek, because I give you a timeout for posting the same message over and over again. If you continue that, I might have to ban you. Like, why are you doing this? You used to put good comments in the chat. I don't know what's happening to Derek, but yeah, go on.
Okay, so how about we do this? How about we watch the video quickly? And that's going to give like
Okay.
a quick overview, and then I can dive into certain parts of what he said, because certain parts need a longer explanation. Um so for context, the voice you hear speaking is Greg Roman, who is the ED of the Middle East Forum that produced this report.
Okay. You can play it when you're ready.
Okay.
Are you aware that we are sending $40 million a week to the Taliban?
Yes, sir.
Can you name other instances of foreign aid going to terrorist organizations?
We have assisted al-Shabaab in Somalia. There's been instances of the Hamzi network in Sudan, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, Hezbollah, Kataib al-Hezbollah, Hayat Tahrir al-Shams in Syria. Dozens of terror organizations have received indirect assistance from U.S. foreign aid.
Could you elaborate a little bit on the mechanisms in place that are to stop foreign aid from going to terrorist groups, and why are they not working if we have any in place?
Sure.
And I would note that these are, you notice these are terrorist weaponry. You see some AKs, SKSs, some snipers, some clips, some clip carriers, probably made in China, and I believe these are small landmines here beside right there.
Let's use Gaza as our case study. $2.1 billion in American taxpayers' money to Gaza since October 7th, when Hamas invaded southern Israel. USAID money was going in terms of an emergency use authorization to try to go to parties that USAID formerly had a relationship with in the Gaza Strip. They had to have been vetted by OFAC. They should have been vetted against the special designated terror list from the State Department and from other Treasury organizations. Waivers were granted because they said that there was an emergency use to have that money come in to Gaza, thereby jettisoning the usual typical screening procedures. As a result, 90% of aid that was going from the United States by way of its agents in Gaza ended up in Hamas-controlled areas. And this is ridiculous. Essentially, what the U.S. assistance to Gaza did was underwrite the ability for Hamas to survive until the ceasefire was just passed a few weeks ago. There was no strategic thought for it, and there was no screening.
Seems like the emergency might have been to arm terrorists to kill civilians. Would that be accurate?
That's accurate, and even more than that, Samantha Powers, the administrator for USAID, was intent on having Israel not be able to defend itself.
To not be able to defend it.
Correct.
Mr. Primorak, is that correct? How do you say that? Primorak? I got Burchett, man. Nobody gets mine right, so don't worry about it. What is it? Primorak?
Perfect.
All right, thanks, brother. How did terrorists exploit our foreign aid loopholes?
Well, we have a lot of our
Can
international.
you pull your mic up? I'm sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
You have international NGOs and UN agencies actively lobby here in Washington, D.C. against vetting policies that would prevent it. I was the senior vetting officer at USAID, and what
Hold
we
on a second. Did you say United Nations is doing this? The UN?
Sure, everybody who's getting money lobbies here.
that they're lobbying against us. I'm sorry, Mr. Roman, you're...
There's actually someone who used to work for one of those lobbies, the largest NGO lobby, Interaction. One of our co-witnesses here worked for them from 2018 to 2023. USAID effectively self-funds its own external private lobby that then goes back to Congress and asks for more money for USAID.
So the taxpayers fund this lobbyist who's working against American interests.
Correct.
Possibly killing our allies and possibly Americans.
They bring together groups in Washington that overseas work with groups that kill Americans.
Yeah, I don't need a flow chart to show that. I appreciate it. Do you think USAID programs have been aligned with the national security interests of the U.S.?
No, they have not. They have actually helped China.
Mr. Roman?
No.
Okay. How do these programs compromise our national security, Mr. Premack?
They actually push China. They actually push much of the world towards China on the green energy agenda. They push people, ordinary people, billions of people towards China because of the resentment caused by our social re-engineering.
Are we being lobbied by these pro-communist China groups currently?
Well, a lot of these countries don't even have to lobby because they get the money anyway, like South Africa.
Yeah, and in fact, these lobbyists have come to the House and have tried to kill legislation like H.R. 160, which was meant to increase transparency in USAID's funding of overseas organizations.
Is that a current piece of legislation?
That's from the last session.
And give me that number again.
H.R. 160.
And what does it do?
It was meant to give U.S. lawmakers the ability to have higher transparency in terror financing investigations aimed at scrutinizing extremist groups.
Mr. Premack?
We had a regulation before we left in the last administration that anybody who touches money in countries where there's terrorists, those names have to go through databases, terrorist databases. That was overturned by Biden.
Overturned by Biden. Chair Lady, I am currently 5 seconds, but I wanted to mention something. There's a lot of rhetoric used on this.
Okay, so that was the main part that I wanted to dive into. And so and the second guy that was speaking, Mr. Permarak, I'm not going to talk about the credibility or basis of his claims. He has a field that I'm not familiar with. He works for the Heritage Foundation and wrote the Project 2025 chapter on USAID. He previously worked for USAID, and so he has a certain view about China, green energy, social engineering, whatever. We're not here to talk about his claims. More about regarding what Mr. Roman of MEF had to say. So basically, I want to try to like paint a picture for you guys, is that there is like a kind of a funnel that things go down. So for example, like we have organizations like Bayader, who is like the money goes from USAID to major American charities such as Catholic Relief Services, Global Communities, or International Medical Corps, and then they work with the Bayader Association, and they're accused of close cooperation with Hamas. So it like follows this pattern. So for example, the American Near East Refugee Agency, or ANERA, the money goes from USAID to ANERA. From ANERA, it goes to the United Friends Association, and the United Friends Association is known as a charitable proxy of Hamas. ANERA also works with the Islamic University of Gaza, which is also known as a Hamas institution. Then there is instances like Islamic Relief. Now, Islamic Relief is an extremely notorious organization. If you're in the UK, you're probably familiar with Islamic Relief. So there's money that goes from USAID to Islamic Relief branches, because there's like all these subsidiaries like Islamic Relief UK, USA, whatever. Islamic Relief is accused of partnering with senior Hamas officials. It's also partnered with the previously mentioned terror-tied Bayader Association. Then there's another one, and this is where we're going to get outside of Gaza. For example, the Helping Hand for Relief and Development, or HHRD. And HHRD is the overseas arm of ICNA, known as the Islamic Circle of North America. And honestly, we need to do a deep dive on ICNA because a lot of people are not familiar with ICNA. But ICNA is the U.S. branch of Jamaat-e-Islami. So this Asian network of Muslim Brotherhood. And HHRD, their partner in Pakistan, is Al-Khidmat, which it has presented a check to Khalid Mashal, the head of Hamas. And they also partner with the Hamas aligned terror charity, United Friends Association. Then let me skip forward to a few other ones. What's very interesting is a lot of these organizations have this money funneled to them by Christian organizations. So there's the evangelical organization World Vision, and World Vision has been associated with um, some of these terror aligned charities as their subgrantees. Or there's Catholic Relief Services, where there's money that has gone from USAID to Catholic Relief Services, which is very famous. CRS is very famous. And then it goes to the Palestine Children's Relief Fund, or PCRF. PCRF is also a very famous charity, which is known for working and being linked directly to Hamas authorities. Um, then there's the Reed Foundation, which I can't remember off the top of my head what Reed Foundation stands for. That's an acronym. But there's like money that's going from the USAID and the State Department, and then there's intermediaries, and then it ends up in the hands of the Reed Foundation. And the Reed Foundation manages schools that are known for indoctrinating students with extremism. Oh, this is in Pakistan. And for example, the schools in Pakistan are teaching children to praise Mumtaz Qadri, the man who assassinated Punjab governor Salman Taseer, because Salman Taseer was defending Asia Bibi, the Christian accused of blasphemy. And then people might remember that, he was executed, and then his funeral was attended by hundreds of thousands, and now this man's shrine is his grave is a shrine. So teaching students to praise that man. Then, oh my gosh. Honestly, I think maybe I should do an entire stream about the Tides Foundation, because then there's also money from the State Department going to the Tides Foundation. The Tides Foundation has some very dubious instances of funding overseas, but basically, and also domestically. And to just put it simply, with all of the domestic, so within the United States, anti-Israel movement that can in many ways be described as a movement of sedition against the United States. We managed to strip the nonprofit status of the Tides Foundation and another organization that goes by the acronym Westpac, we would almost single-handedly eliminate the power and funding behind the domestic anti-Israel movement, because they're behind so much of the chaos that we've seen on campuses, for example, and also in actions where people are blocking highways and stuff like that. Then we have a situation where, and this is what Mr. Roman was talking about with this funding and lobbying loop. So basically, there's this one organization called Interaction. And Interaction has a project called the Together Project, or I think it's been renamed to the Civic Space. And basically, it's kind of known as this key component of this like lobbying funding loop that benefits these members that are part of this Together Project that are known for their Islamist ties. And so this loop involves taxpayer money, subsidizes Interaction. Interaction has this project, Together Project, and then Together Project lobbies against scrutiny and transparency of their activities and their subrecipients. So basically, they receive taxpayer money, they have a project, and then coalescing as a coalition, they are undermining anti-terror, counter-terror financing laws. And when what Greg Roman was talking about is when there are groups like his, which are using publicly sourced data, which is what their report came out of, and bringing attention to this issue within the government, they use language like they just call MEF Islamophobic to just shut them down and close them out of the conversation and say, no, like, don't listen to what these people are saying. They're bigoted. They're Islamophobic. So don't don't worry about all these issues or the actually advocating against stricter counter terrorism financing laws. But again, this is a group that's receiving taxpayer money. Um, it's just so crazy to me to just see them like openly lobby against scrutiny.
So the reason why Congress did not know about this is because lobbyists managed to shut down any investigation or any reporting to Congress about this specific issue. The lobbyists from the very groups that were receiving these fundings.
Well, I mean, I
Is
wouldn't
that
make
right?
it that totalistic. This has been on the radar for some time. MEF, like this report that came out on February 1st, is actually the result of years of research. And they've been raising this to Congress for many, many years. But I'm saying like
Yeah, but there seems
its effectiveness was shut down or
Mhm.
maligned by these groups, if that makes sense.
Okay. No, I know there's one thing for you to have publicly available reports. It's another thing for you to be able to get politicians aware of it or concerned about it,
Mhm.
right? Those are two different levels. The reason why it didn't get to the second level is because of a whole bunch of lobbying. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, I just don't wanna say that Congress didn't know, because I know the MEF has been working with members of Congress for a long time.
Yeah, but the level of awareness, I mean, we didn't see anything like this. So Congress knows or doesn't know is not like a binary thing. Obviously, there are some Congress senators or Congress people that know something, but the level of awareness sometimes doesn't get to the higher level unless you make a big noise about it. Like, so I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I just want to make sure that people understand that we are not, again, suggesting that there should be no USA. Okay. And like it's just like I do not agree with this new MAGA team coming here and throwing out the baby out with the bathwater. And the US aid that should be there, this should have all been corrected. US aid should be like bad US aid should be replaced with good US aid, not with no US aid in many areas. Like they came out with a chainsaw at this instead of a surgical knife. I want people to understand that we're not, and we are also not suggesting that the United States taxpayers should be doing aid to the rest of the world for the sake of just being good to people, because that's not the responsibility of a taxpayer. If you want to be generous to other people around the world, we have charities for that. And people should have the choice to do that. It shouldn't be based on this is not out of generosity or from a moral perspective. This is a soft power thing. The United States is safer. It's safer. So this is actually, if the United States if it exercises its soft power properly, it would require less hard power. It would require less military actions. It saves the taxpayer money. It actually makes money for Americans. I mean, Dee could actually correct me on this one because she's more aware of African issues. But for example, in Africa, if U.S. aid is just by being there and helping people with disease and education, that gets American companies a lot of contracts. If people in Africa are feeling positive about Americans and not feeling positive about Russians there, that's gonna bring a lot of it's gonna make it easier for United States to have a presence there without facing hostility, to maintain stability there, and it's going to get a lot of more businesses going in the direction of United States rather than Russia, for example. I mean, we know how beneficial this is to a country for them to be present there, because China, who I bet you is not doesn't give a shit about. So D is correct saying D is saying absolutely, Army. The CCP doesn't give a shit about being moral to people around the world. Then why are they doing aid? Why are they present in where as soon as the United States gets out? Why do they show up? Because they know that this is beneficial. Okay,
Well,
it's not
and
because
because
like,
they know that they
oh,
will come for their pound of flesh.
Right, exactly. So this is, guys, getting, I know, I hate how pro Putin Trump is being, okay? But this, I thought maybe the silver lining is going to be, okay, let Europeans focus more on Russia, but maybe this will make United States maybe a little bit stronger against China. But the way Trump is doing this is making United States weaker. It's going to make United States weaker against China as well, not just Russia. Okay, this is going to leave a lot of vacuum for China to come fill. It's going to make uh, U.S. support a lot less reliable, and it doesn't make any economic sense. It doesn't make I like okay, I was saying maybe a lot of these tariffs, for example, didn't make any economic sense. But like, okay, but if it hurts China in a way, CCP, not China, in a way that maybe there's a silver lining there. But we're running out of silver linings here. Okay, the only silver lining I can find right now is that Europe is going to get its act together and spend a lot of more money on its military, which is something what we want. But again, we wanted that for a long time, but not like this. Like this, we needed a read we needed a shift of the balance of power, military power, a little bit more on the shoulders of European countries and also Japan and South Korea. But the adjustment is being happening in such an ugly way, especially after we saw what happened with Zelensky. This is embarrassing. This is ugly. But yeah, I mean, we needed a shift, but the pendulum is shifting too fast and too in such an
Well, also, I mean,
embarrassing and
let's be
ugly way.
honest, a shift within Europe is not going to correct, it's not going to be instant. It's not going to be an instant correction. I mean, we have years
Right.
of neglect that have happened. This shift isn't going to solve our problems overnight. But yeah, it is really ugly. So one thing I wanted to touch on, and this is something that is going to be a broad overview. I want people to understand that I'm giving you guys a very broad overview. I'm actually hopefully going to try to get the author of this report on the stream because I actually know him. And so like I want all our atheists to pray for me that I'm able to get him on the stream. um but so a lot of people, one thing that we haven't addressed yet is, one, how did this even happen? We need to understand how this even happened before we just lose our minds. And then also, what are the recommendations to help correct this? So let's quickly, and again, broad overview, let's go through what happened that were the failures, right? So here are a couple of failures in oversight. So there was deficient disclosure practices and lack of transparency. So um there's just records of federal funding are very obfuscated through deficient disclosure practices. And actually, in the congressional testimony, MEF was testifying to the fact that their FOIA requests, Freedom of Information Act requests for transparent documents regarding one of the organizations that they were investigating, have been denied for over 18 months. So basically, there are just all these deficiencies and inconsistencies within the government spending data, with missing and contradictory information in federal records. um, there is an inadequate vetting process. So USAID's vetting policies are described as starkly deficient. For example, major Western charities that partner with USAID are required to vet their subgrantees, have demonstrably failed to do so. USAID itself, their Office of Inspector General, so USAID itself has warned about the failure of current procedures of awardees identifying the threats within their subawardees. And part of this had to do with it was basically a self-selection process, um, where vetting requirements for non-US organizations require only two key individuals within a subgrantee. And those key individuals are self-identified by the implementing partner and their subawardee, which leads to a problem of who has an ideological motive to self-identify as a key individual who would be vetted, if that makes sense. Then there's a problem of ideological blindness and misguided priorities. And MEF has written extensively about how since 2008, where I believe it was in 2008 when the Holy Land uh, terror financing trial went down, um, efforts to monitor and prosecute Hamas networks within the United States have been like shut down and like literally allowed to flourish. Um, and part of this, and this is a criticism, has to do with certain US intelligence believing that to combat some Islamists, we need to partner with other Islamists. And so it's led to a conflict of interest with, well, we don't actually want to like fully dig in and investigate these people over here because we kind of need these people over here to leverage against these other people over here. So that's created a security problem. Um, then what's another one? Basically, there's lack of consequences for failure to vet, downplaying the risks of money laundering and terror financing. So, for example, Interaction, that group I was telling you about, that's part of that fundraising lobbying loop, has endorsed letters to the House and Senate pushing for weakening terror financing laws and met with lawmakers from key committees and lobbied against legislation targeting terror financing in South Asia. Um, and then there is an issue of influence from the Charity and Security Network, which advocates on behalf of groups caught up in terror financing organizations, and again, undermining terror, countering terror finance. Um, and so, finally, what are the recommendations about what can be done? Um, we need to impose overwhelming transparency rules. This is something I'm a big fan of. Um, we need to broaden the vetting process and yeah, widen the vetting procedure to exclude any organization which, whether through its activities or the opinions of its staff, support terrorism groups or leaders and lionizes terrorist behavior. Any funding to an organization which supports terrorists or operatives serves to facilitate the support of terror. And let me tell you guys something. That's a big problem because MEF has done a fantastic job of just going through the people who operate these different subgrantees and the people who operate the charities that are aligned with terrorists and just going through their social media profiles of the people working for these charities and just like terrorist support. it's it's actually pretty crazy. Um And so it's like, okay, that should be disqualifying. If you have people working for you that talk this way on Facebook, like you can't get our money. You can't get our money. Um we need to subject whoops. Oh shoot, I lost my place. Subject all these entities to vetting. All grantees, all subgrantees, and all their staff and partners must be subjected to vetting. Um, we have learned that these primary grantees, the person that USAID gives the money to the primary grantee gives it to the subgrantee. We have clearly learned that these primary grantees do not have the ability to sufficiently vet their subgrantees. So they're calling for independent vetting. They're saying, no, 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 it is no longer sufficient for the primary grantee to be responsible for vetting the who you're working with. You failed to do so. We're going to require that they're independently vetted. We can't trust the word. There should be the solicitations for public input. So like when a beneficiary of USAID or US foreign aid is introduced, there should be a public comment so that groups that monitor Hamas or terror aligned charities can submit comment and say, no, 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 these people are not safe. We need to shut this all down. Give their feedback in about any concerns that other organizations might have. basically there needs to be better publicly available information. And one of the things that Mr. Roman talked about at the congressional hearing is that it is not good enough for the grant reports that come out of USAID to just say that the grant was completed. The report of what was completed and how it was completed should also be publicly available. Requiring complete disclosure, and mandate unredacted tax returns for people who receive this kind of federal funding. That's getting into the nitty gritty of some stuff that goes on in the nonprofit industry. Basically, most tax returns are publicly available, but they're partially redacted. And basically, they're saying if you receive this kind of thing, it should not be redacted at all. If there are organizations that have previously been non-compliant, we should bar them from receiving this again. And actually, they at the congressional hearing, they were at the place where they're like, we need to actually call for criminal investigation at this point, because of the level
Yeah,
of
this
what's
is
been going on.
treason. Somebody in the chat was saying, isn't this like treason? I don't know. Is that an exact? I mean, you're supporting the enemies of the United States. Isn't that like treasonous level
I
activity?
mean, treason is a very specific charge. But basically, MEF would argue that they have found violations that could amount to severe violations of like terror financing laws, existing terror financing laws. And on the basis of what I heard during the congressional hearing that I was watching, it sounded like Doge or this committee is actually interested in possibly pursuing some of these criminal investigations and charges.
Yeah. And then people are going to see that here it would make sense, and they're going to think the whole thing is justified because it makes sense here. That's the thing. You know, they're going to have these examples to show people.
I mean,
this
this
is
is a damning example, though.
This is a
This is
damning
a
example.
damning
Yeah.
example. Like, I mean, that is, um, it's so severe that, just for the person who's kind of a member, like a layman, like, being extremely skeptical of this institution now on the basis of this kind of negligence, to the point that some of the witnesses, especially, like, described this as malfeasance. I cannot blame your average American for being deeply skeptical and cynical about this institution.
Skeptical. They should feel
Yeah.
rage. I mean, Americans in the chat, how do you feel that again, Susan's gonna get upset that I'm framing it like this probably, but how do you feel about funding Hamas or ISIS from your actual
Well, to be fair, we don't see anything
work?
about ISIS in this report, just to clarify. But
Okay.
yeah, the point stands.
His Yeah. Wait, what was it? What it was either ISIS or Al Qaeda? Which one was it? But okay,
No,
you guys.
we on this list we got various charities linked to Hamas. We got Jamaat-e-Islami. We got Lashkar-e-Taiba, links to Lashkar-e-Taiba. Those are, and also Al-Shabaab in Sudan, I think, off the top of my head.
Al-Shabaab in Sudan. Okay, yeah. So yeah, when you went to work and made money, that money is part of it was spent on that. So you, like as an American, you partially funded October 7th. So how do you feel
No,
about
one of
that?
these grantees working tied to Hamas and working in Gaza received almost $1 million in the days preceding October 7th. And then when October 7th, all the vetting went out, as we saw in the clip, all the vetting went out the window under emergency order. And that's why Mr. Roman of MEF, the Middle East Forum, describes it as underwriting Hamas's campaign until the weeks of the preceding the ceasefire.
Oh, by the way, Angry Keyboard Warrior is saying Al Shabaab is part of Al Qaeda, if I remember correctly. So then we covered Al Qaeda. If that's
We got such a alphabet soup of terrorist organizations in the world. It's hard to keep them all straight sometimes.
Yeah, and some of the ones that you mentioned that at some point pledged loyalty to ISIS as well. This ISIS works like a franchise, right? So you don't actually have to come for them. You could just like buy their do-it-yourself kits and just use their branding, and all of a sudden you weren't ISIS before, and now you're ISIS.
It helps
So
with their marketing.
yeah,
Actually,
it
we're going to
helps with
talk
the
about that later.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Um
Yeah.
yeah, I'm really really glad that this is finally getting the attention it deserves, because since this past year I've become more interested in not only just understanding Islamism as a concept, but also what are the influence networks that are occurring within the United States specifically. Um, like I've talked about the Iranian soft power influence network here on this channel and the reports I've read on that. But then there's also financing. And Sam Westrup of MEF, who wrote this report, has previously talked about, we imagine that the funding of Islamists in the United States is going from east to west into our country to influence people here. And he's saying, based on his findings as the director of Islamist Watch, um, no, it's actually the opposite. The money is going from west to east, and through a variety of different networks. Um, one of them is ICNA, which I really should cover on this channel because it kind of goes under the radar on our books because it's outside of our kind of sphere of influence that we dissect. Um, but yeah, and so I just knowing how thoroughly they've been working on this for years and years and years, I'm really glad to see it covered on the national stage and get the attention it deserves. Um, I don't know. I just for lack of a better word, like I will defend the idea and conception of USAID. Um, but what it's evolved into and some of its operations, I, cannot support and I reject. But I do
Yeah.
in general hold the value of its original intention as
There are
something I deeply
there
value
are
and will defend.
here's the thing, okay, guys. It is true that there's a lot of things within USAID that if you look at what they're doing, you're like, holy shit, why is that there? Okay. However, there are a lot of things that if we list those, and you're gonna be like, oh my god, do not cut that. Okay. So we have examples for both. We have examples like why is that there? How is this happening? How did this last for so long? Holy shit, that we should like burn everything to the ground. Okay, but for example, there are parts of USAID programs. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, in the chat, that if cutting those means like disease is going to spread, and these diseases are not going to recognize borders. Like it's going to come to haunt back Americans. Like we could have uh, COVID like situations like directly as a result of cutting some of these US aid programs. Like, right, uh, Susie, if I'm like, let me know if you've heard that before as well,
Yeah,
or if it's in
100%.
the live checking. Yeah. So yeah, this is a bizarre situation where we don't where I feel like, because like the content I watch is either people um completely dismissing some, can you introduce me to some people who are treating this properly? Because I'm either getting people who are uh re- you know acting like these things don't exist, these programs, like horrible programs like this, don't exist, or they're exaggerated, or they're all made up, or
Mm.
people who are just going to like, all USAID is fucking bullshit. We shouldn't be. Why are we doing this? Why are we meddling around the world? Why are we involved in other countries? I was like, what the hell? Have you been born yesterday? Do you understand how geopolitics is done? Do you
No.
understand the
I mean, that's
yeah,
okay, but I think the answer is
right?
no, and, like, that's okay.
They don't,
Most people don't,
right? Yeah,
you
most
know?
people don't. Most
To be
people
honest,
don't, and
like, don't even believe that most Americans could accurately, like, point to what country is Spain on the map. Like, I don't expect them to, like, have an understanding of geopolitics, like, um,
yeah.
but actually, just let me do it, I'm gonna send you a guy that's really good before I forget. Let me get the.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
I think anyways. Um, yeah, it's a mess. It's a mess.
We should look at some of the comments that they selected.
Yeah. So this is just kind of a report highlighting the issue.
The report. Okay.
So
you
so
wanna read
this tweet is saying, like, explaining the issue. Like, this federal employee describes how USAID sent billions to Islamist terror organizations across the world, including 2 billion to Hamas. What are you talking about? That's not what they said in that clip. Okay, I don't know what Yuri here is talking about, because several things are not true. Like, Greg Roman was not a federal employee. Like, maybe, I don't know. Anyways, scroll down.
2 billion? No,
Yeah.
that's okay.
It's infuriating to see how the evil that was done with our tax dollars every day brings a new revelation. And I know, and I completely understand that sentiment. Like I said, someone might quibble over the fact that a total of 1.64 million. Wait, no, excuse me. 164 million is so small in comparison to the total budget of USAID. But I mean, when it's going in this direction, I mean, that's extremely costly. It's
Yeah, I
gonna
mean, the
cost us a
cost
lot more than
associated
that.
with that is not the cost associated with that is not the money that you're spending on it. The cost associated with that is the consequences of that
Yeah.
support eventually down the line. Yeah.
Wait, scroll up a little bit.
Okay.
So, this is a tweet from MEF. The White House cites MEF research exposing hundreds and thousands of dollars going from USAID to distribute it to nonprofits linked to designated terrorist organizations, even after an inspector general launched an investigation. Yeah, that's true. And then can you scroll down a little bit to their response? Carol here saying, really sleep at the switch. Where were the Republican politicians the entire time? Not worried about where the American taxpayers' money was spent.
I mean, both sides were busy arguing identity politics. Okay, I think that was the main point of politics, and both sides were guilty of it.
It's because we just like the drama of the culture war. Everyone likes the to be honest.
Right.
Let's be honest. Everyone is just likes culture war drama, even though like we got better stuff to worry about.
Yeah.
But I mean,
You're
I don't know. I don't know if it's completely fair to say, oh, everyone's asleep at the switch, because like I do know that there has been work on this for a long time. So I don't know. This other person sorry. The name of this user is the most mega shit I've ever seen. Proud deplorable swamp repellent.
Oh my god. Swamp
Oh my
Jesus.
god. Stop all foreign aid, okay, until our budget is balanced. Then only fund nations who support us.
Okay, idiots. The budget is not going to be balanced by
No, by USAID. It's not going to be balanced just by
I do.
USAID.
Have you seen what's on your budgets? Do you understand the amount, like, I don't think these people understand percentages, and like, just look at the
No.
budget and see what difference that's going to make.
Go look up the website that is the clock of our debt, our $1 trillion
Right.
debt. I don't think cutting, 900,000 here and a million there is gonna cut the difference, unfortunately.
This is why I don't understand Elon Musk. Like, does he not understand how numbers work? I mean, he's been managed. Like, why is he lying, or is he bad at math?
Well, I
Because he
mean, I
comes
think
and
he is a
says like,
liar and
"Oh,
a dishonest person. His behavior has exhibited him to be a liar and a dishonest person.
okay." So you think, because sometimes I feel like, okay, if he's not a liar, then he must be stupid in certain topics. Okay, like, because Armin,
Yeah.
he's not stupid. He did this and this and that. Like, okay, maybe he's smart in those things, but in these areas, he's either stupid or lying. I don't know which one it is, but it's clear. But this is clearly wrong. Like, he says things that, if he asks Grok, okay, his own
Yeah,
AI,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
The AI that he just made himself would correct 99% of the bullshit that he's putting. Like he just have to. He's every time he wants to say something, he should just check with the AI that he made himself, okay, before he posts them. Okay, I don't know.
Yeah, it's it's bad. It's bad. What I've heard a lot of
Okay.
people say is with Elon, they're like, "Oh, well, when he was talking about this subject that I wasn't really familiar with, he sounded really knowledgeable and insightful. And then he spoke about a subject that I have expertise in. And I realized that he's dishonest and an absolute fool. And then it made me question his expertise and all these other things that I don't know about. It's that kind of a situation.
It's
And I'm
tempting.
inclined to
It's
agree.
tempting. It's tempting for a lot of people on our side to like the guy because he calls out a lot of things that we would like a lot of people on our side wanted to be called out. So you're like, oh, I like that these things are being called out. So should I just like agree with him? And like, well, I mean, it's true. These things needed to be called out, and now somebody with a giant megaphone is calling them out, and that's nice. But the man is stupid in so many like there are a lot of misinformation that he's spreading as well. Like that's true. And a lot of people are like, okay, but I like the idea that social media is becoming less sensorial. So I kind of like that. And like you could like that, you could enjoy that, but at the same time, because Elon Musk is responsible, honestly, for social media being less sensorial. I mean, and people cannot deal with these conflicting feelings. I'm like, I like that that's happening, but also this looks like bullshit that he posted that. Like, that's absolute nonsense. So how do I deal with these mixed feelings? I'm like, okay, you could hate that and like that at the same time. Anyways, and we have super chats to
Dude, what
go.
drives me crazy is like I I just the amount of like just right-wing slop on Twitter. I'm legitimately thinking of making a Blue Sky account just to get a breath of fresh air. That's how you know it's bad. Oh my god. There was something else I wanted to say, but I just forgot it. Maybe it'll come back to me. Oh, yeah. No, I mean, frankly, I just straight up cannot respect any man who has the family creation practices that he has. And I cannot respect you as a man if you do that kind of
Also,
stuff.
didn't he become rich from USAID? Like Elon Musk is
USAID?
the
No, I
richest
mean
man.
he had
No,
not
I know,
USAID to my
I know.
not my knowledge.
No. I'm not talking. I'm not talking
Just
specifically
subsidies
about
in
USAID.
general? Sure.
I'm trying to I was trying to. I call it a just to. I tried to be funny. You ruined it. But like, yeah, but U.S. support. That's what I meant. Like, this is he's cutting so many programs. Some of the programs that he is cutting is the reason how he got to be the richest man in the world. Right. So, anyways.
Yeah.
We need to go to the super chats. Do you want to address the super chats?
Um, yeah, oh my gosh, we got so much.
We got
Amit
so many.
Yaka is saying, finally back to my home after 1.5 years, celebrating her membership for 5 months. Thank you so much, Amit. Wait,
I meet.
Amit. Is
I have.
Amit? I think Amit might. I'm inferring that might
Yeah.
mean that Amit is from the north of Israel.
Yeah, and I think it's a he, not a she, but I'm not
Oh,
sure.
sorry.
But thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
congratulations. Nina gifted 5 Atheist Republic memberships. Thank you so much, Nina. And the funniest thing
Ooh.
is that Nina's icon right here is the anime mascot that the Vatican made.
The Vatican made an anime mascot?
Yeah, it's kind of awesome, honestly. It
Okay,
it has been
this is the
working with the
only
Zoomers. The Zoomers have been loving it.
this is the first time the Vatican has. Okay, no. Okay, I just remembered that they fund they almost got me. They almost got me. Okay, these mofo's fund protection for child abusers, and all of a sudden, like this almost distracted me from that for half a second. But nice try, Vatican.
Kenny also gifted 10 Atheist Republic memberships. Thank you for being so generous, Kenny. Oh, also exciting announcement. Kenny is also a new member of our news team. Fei Dai Jin.
Wait, let me actually, guys, thank you so much for being members and gifting memberships. Again, we're trying to get to 1,000 members, okay? And if we get to 1,000 members, then this channel will be financially secured. So please help us get to 1,000 members, okay? So that we don't have to worry about any of our expenses anymore. So thank you. We're at 234 right now. So please get us to 1,000. Thank you.
Fei Jin, I don't know, gave a couple euros. Thank you. Saying, yes, for sure. It's important for sure. I'm not exactly sure what
Yes.
this is in response to. Maybe the topic we're covering in general, but thank you for the super chat.
Yes, thank you.
Darko, longtime member, also gifted 5 Atheist Republic memberships. Thank you so much, Darko.
Thank
If
you.
you want to become an Atheist Republic membership and not wait for a handout, you're like, I want a membership. Why doesn't someone give me one? But you're not getting one. Okay. You can hit the join button down below. Please join and support the channel. Angry Keyboard Warrior gave a super chat saying former hostage Agam Berger said that the terrorists valued her more because she's religious and tried to observe Judaism in captivity. Do you have any thoughts? Is she the one that learned how to do Jewish prayers in Arabic? Because I saw a video of one of the hostages, former hostages, singing, and it was incredibly beautiful voice. What do you have any thoughts on this in particular, Armin?
Yeah, I think it's amazing how some people think this is wholesome. I find this disgusting. That this actually shows the value system that these people have. This actually makes me disgusted even more. That the human life and human suffering is not what makes these people not want to be kind to other people. It's religious observance, whether Islamic or Judaism. So there is no inherent, they don't see inherent value in people, human life. They see inherent value in observance over of religion. This is basically religion above human life mentality. This is absolutely disgusting. This actually shows how these people think. This is a death cult.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. I expect nothing less. So, D gave a super chat. Thank you, D, saying, "Oh, let's all thank Susanna for all her research. This stuff takes hours and hours." Yes,
Thank
I
you,
read this
Susie.
entire
Yes,
report.
Guys, please, actually, thank you, D, for saying that. And guys, please, after the show is over, make sure you mention that in the comment sections, because this is the only way we could reward Susie for all the work that she's doing, is for her to see that you guys are appreciating her work. So please, at least do that.
Sketch Therapy gave a super chat saying, "Please more weapons laundering and money laundering data." If you're asking us to just cover this more often, or this kind of like Islamist funding or influence network issue, like sure, I'm happy to cover that more often. It's the kind of funding networks that I look into typically don't involve weapons laundering and stuff. But one thing that I did want to say is that this report only covers the kind of funding that's coming from the government. It's only coming from public funding. To be honest, it doesn't even cover at all the corruption that happens within the nonprofit sector. Which goes deep. I'm not even gonna lie to you guys. Gaysian American, because just to clarify my point, what I'm saying is this only covers public money. Then there's this whole network of private money, which is a whole separate matter. Gaysian American, thank you for the super chat, saying, "Oh, thank you, Susie, for all your research. I can say from first hand, it's very time consuming. Also, there's a red note joke that Trump is the best Chinese spy. I love how red note users really own the Chinese spy label. Like when all the Westerners were joining Red Note because they were TikTok refugees, and the Chinese users would post up in the comments being like, I'm your like local Chinese spy. I'm your assigned Chinese spy. Like, hi, nice to meet you. Like, I don't know. I think it's funny. Uh, uh, Asian American give another super chat saying government backed blockchain ledger equals transparency question mark. Are you
Government
advocating
back.
for
I mean,
this?
yeah, I mean, blockchain ledgers are the whole point of blockchain is for it not to require any backing. Is for the decentral. I mean, is the main utility of that is the decentralization. I mean, why would you need to back it when you have so many nodes all around the world? It does it. It backs itself. I don't know how would that work. I mean, I don't know how that works, but yeah. I mean,
Um,
the main popularity of it is that it doesn't require backing and it's transparent by design without anybody needing to make it transparent. But yeah, that's it.
Gajan gave another super chat. Wow, you're so generous today. Saying, I like Qin Shi Huang standardized writing, measurement, and bureaucracy, but I dislike that he sent 460 scholars to Yama. That means like he killed them. That we, the Chinese diaspora, are used to this good bad whiplash. This, yeah, it's an element of life we have to get accustomed to. And you
Oh,
highlighted this, Armin. Cat
yeah, I
Lady
was
saying,
wondering people. Yeah, go on, read it.
Cat Lady saying, did you see the full Zelensky video? It's very interesting. You highlighted this?
Yes. Yeah, I just want to say yes, I did, and I was wondering if you guys want me to all together to do a stream on it and go through it line by line, right? Because the entirety of it, you could see that almost everything, I think everything that Zelensky said was correct, and every time Trump and uh, other people around there try to correct him, they were wrong. Almost every single one of the time, single correction that they try, every time they push Trump and everyone around him pushed back against Zelensky, Zelensky was right and they were wrong. The problem is that Zelensky, even though he was right, he should have known that Trump is such a freaking baby, and you do not correct Trump. You're dealing with the most powerful man in the universe. I actually I don't know on Earth, okay, and and the guy takes corrections personally, and he has the future of your country in your hand. I mean, he was correct every single time, and Trump was wrong. But I don't know if it was a good idea to get on this man's nerve like that. They should have told you that. I mean, it's humiliating, but this man needs his dick, sucked before you get things from him. Like you have to boost his ego. That's how it works with Trump. That's how it works. I don't know. What do you guys want me to go through it every line by line? Let me know if you want me to do
I
that.
mean,
Yeah.
it's like a 50-minute exchange. You can't go through line by line.
So D is saying Vance started it. Okay, but D, Vance is there because Vance is Trump's dog to go bite the person that is going like that in other meetings. That's what Vance is there for. The point of Vance is that Trump is like, you go at them if they come for me. Like that's what he has done in the future in other meetings, slightly not as aggressively as this, but that's why Trump likes Vance sitting there, for him to put them in their place if they are getting too, if they're correcting Trump, or if they are becoming, a little bit too if they're overpowering Trump. That's the role he has. So, and I think like Zelensky should have been properly trained more properly trained how to deal with a baby like that. I mean, he thought like, hey, I would just go say correct things and that's how it works. Like, no, that's not how it works. That's not how politics works, unfortunately. But anyways, let me know if you guys want me to do a stream on that.
Oh no, I haven't watched the full thing yet. I plan to. What I have seen so far has made me sick and depressed. So
Yeah, it
um
was disgusting.
and
It was disgusting and shameful.
yeah.
This is like, yeah. I mean, the most disgusting part of it is how they talked to the president. That is like, you are talking to the representative of the Ukrainian people, and by insulting him, you're insulting an entire nation. An entire nation talking down to him, talking about how bad he has it, as if he doesn't know, as if they haven't experienced that with their own blood, like putting, humiliating him by telling him how bad of a situation Ukraine is. I'm sure he's well aware of that. Why is that an insult even? It was absolutely disgusting. Do you know who makes the most amazing, gorgeous, and other adjectives that I can't use here on YouTube, blasphemous art ever? We do. And for some reason, we are giving it away for free. Download them now using the link in the description before we change our mind.